Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I am the Night Walker, and just recently I reviewed the 1972 movie Tales from the Crypt, put out by Amicus Films, and I thought, you know what? While I'm at it, why not? Let's go ahead and we'll review Vault of Horror while we're at it from 1973. I love this movie, man. Love this movie. Now you had when EC Comics were putting out their comic books, which unfortunately in the 1950s they had to stop because they were getting a lot of flack from religious leaders, political protesters, all this stuff saying that these comics were contributing to juvenile delinquency and things like that. So ultimately they had to put a stop to these comics, which was a real shame. Real shame that happened, but anyway, though, so back in the 1970s, Amicus decided that they were going to do their version. So they did Tales from the Crypt in 1972, and they had good success with it. So they decided to do, Vault of Horror in 1973. I would say that probably about the only thing I think is kind of really sad is that in the comic books, in the comics, you had the Crypt Keeper. And then in the Haunt of Fear, you had the Old Witch. But you had a Vault Keeper for the Vault of Horror, which unfortunately there is no Vault Keeper in this. So that was kind of sad. And if they ever did do I don't know if Amicus ever did do a Haunt of Fear movie. Like I said, I don't know anything about it. Maybe they might have tried it, but then they turned around, just gave it a different title. I don't know. But so yeah, I'm not 100% sure about that. But they did do Vault of Horror, and the story starts off. It's five. Sorry, my throat's a little dry. It's five stories with a wraparound, and the story takes place in London. Of course, it's Amicus; they're a British company. So anyway, so our story starts off. We got five businessmen. They're in a office building in London. They all crowd into this elevator, and the elevator is going down, and the elevator is not going where they want to. They want to get off at certain floors and things like that, and the elevator is not responding. Instead, it goes to a sub basement, which they're like, sub basement. Didn't know the building had one. So the doors open, and then see this, nicely decorated room. Well, nicely decorated for the 1970s. I imagine a lot of people probably look at that set now. They probably be like, "Whoa, God, that's pretty gaudy and tacky looking." But in the 1970s, I think that was pretty much, that was considered, like sophistication. So but anyway, they can't get out. The elevator doors close, and they're all stuck in this room, and they're just like, well, what can we do? There's no way to call for help or whatever. It's like, well, let's just hang back. It's like we got plenty of booze, we got cigarettes. Let's just hang back and relax until somebody comes down and finds us, lets us out. So they sit down. They're talking about how this is called. It's all weird, and it's kind of like it's almost like it's in a dream and stuff. And one of the characters says, dreams are weirder than this, and mine are so weird. And so, so the guy's like, well, why don't you tell us about your dream? I was like, we gotta pass the time anyway. So the guy's like, yeah, okay, I will. And I'm gonna be getting into some spoilers here. I said down Tales from the Crypt do that here too. So some spoilers. So anyway, so our first story starts off. We got the guy. He's looks like he's getting dressed, getting ready to go out for the evening, and there's a knock on his door, and this strange man comes in, and it's like he's all like, "You found her? Where?" The guy's not answering. He just goes to the bar, pours himself a drink, and he's all like, this, meaning pay me. So he comes up, gives him some money, and he's all like, "This is where she is." Gives him an address, and I was like, "Yeah, there's something really off about that neighborhood. I didn't like it at all, and something really strange about it." And the guy's like, okay, so nobody saw you come here. Nobody knows I hired you. And he's all like, I'm discreet. I know my job and stuff. So the man gets ready to leave, and the guy turns around, strangles him to death, and takes his money back. We find out he's a greedy turd. So so he takes his money back. He's like, thank you, and gets he's got his address, got his money back. So he goes to this little town, and this little town, it's kind of it does have a little bit of a ominous vibe to it and stuff. And so he goes to this house that basically the guy's looking for his sister. So he goes to the house. He's like knocking on the door and things like that, and no answer, no answer. So he's trying to so he's like he's stepping down the street, see if he can see maybe somebody up in the upstairs window, and he turns around, bumps into this guy, and this guy's really kind of weird and bizarre looking, and he's all like, "You're a stranger in town, aren't you?" And he's like, "Yes, I am." And he's all, "Best get inside somewhere." They come out in the dark, And so he leaves and he's like, huh? So whatever. So he figures, well, I can't get to my sister right now. And he sees a restaurant is open. So he goes in, sits down, waiting to be served. It's like, guess I'll have some dinner. So the waiter comes up and tells him, sir, I'm sorry, but we're closing. And he's all like, you can't close now. It's dinner time, and he's all like, I'm sorry, we have to close. It's getting dark. They come out in the dark. And he's all like, what are you talking about? So, but the waiter doesn't tell him. He just bugs off. So he leaves the restaurant. He sees, like, well, I'll try the house again. So he goes and he knocks on the door and, the woman answers and, is like, what are you doing here? It's like, I'm your brother. I come here to see you and stuff like that. It's like, I missed you. You're my sister. Let me in. I need to talk to you. And so he goes inside and he's all like, yeah, it took me a long time to find you. I don't know what happened to you. What the hell is going on in this town? Everybody acts so weird. And, she's like, it's because of them. It's like, what do you mean them? And, there have been all these murders, victims found with every drop of blood drained out of them. So, I mean, obviously by this time, we, the audience, we already figured this out, obviously. But apparently the guy, he's so stupid and greedy, he can't figure it out. So, I mean, obviously we're talking about vampires, right? They only come out in the dark, bodies found with all the blood drained out of them. Come on, man. It doesn't take much to put that together. You don't even have to be a horror fan to put that together. But apparently this numbnuts, he can't put it together. Anyway, so, but he's just focused on his task, so so she's asking, why did you try to find me? And he's all like, because father died and he left you everything. He's all like, provided as long as you live. So he takes out a switchblade, he stabs his sister to death. So she falls down and so he's like, ha ha ha, and stuff. And kind of similar to Tales from the Crypt where, you got some good effects in this movie, but the blood doesn't, it's still that kind of like red, kind of melted lipstick, kind of, melted crayon kind of looking stuff. But anyway, so he's happy. Now the money's his. His sister's dead, all this other kind of stuff. So he's happy. So he goes out. He sees the restaurant is open again and people are going in. And so he figures, oh, what the hell? I killed my sister. I'll celebrate. So he goes to this restaurant, sits down, takes a table and a different waiter shows up, big bald guy. And yeah, it was me. Kidding. Anyway, so yeah, he comes up and he's, tell him this is what the special is tonight and everything. He's like, yeah, that's fine. So he's just kind of looking around. Everything seems normal. Everybody's just eating. Seems like they're having fun. So, he brings up this glass, it's red stuff in it. And he's like, oh, tomato juice. And the guy's like, so he takes a drink. He's like, ooh, no, no. He's like, take it away and stuff. So he brings a bowl of soup. So he starts, he's like, this is kind of strange. And well, it's our usual, sir. It's, oh, okay. And so the waiter asks him, how did you like your roast clots? And he's like, roast what? And he's like, clots, blood clots. So, he's ready to bug out of there, but, the waiter holds him down. So he goes and he pulls this curtain back and reveals this, gigantic mirror. And he's the only one that casts a reflection in it. So, he finally gets it now. It's like he realized everybody in the restaurant is a vampire. He's the only human in there. So, they lock the doors, they're blocking him any chance of escape. And then all of a sudden, the one person who walks into the restaurant is his sister, and he screams, in terror and stuff. She's got the switchblade and all that. And so, we find out, yeah, now they got the fangs. They got the funny looking fangs and stuff. And they're talking about, yeah, better than the frozen stuff. Oh, yeah, I love fresh blood and all that stuff. And she's like, I'll have a glass too, please. And what they do is they take the guy, they hang him upside down. They attach like a spigot to his neck. And so they're sitting there, so the waiter is sitting there. He's like, turning it on and he's, draining all the blood, getting everybody a glass of blood so they can all have some. And so that's the first story. So he's talking about, yeah, it's so weird and all that kind of stuff. And, I think the guy asked him, do you have a sister? He's like, no, it's just a dream. So it's like, we all have weird dreams, And so the one guy talks about his dream and he's all, go into the second story. And, he's talking about how he's telling a buddy of his that he's getting married and stuff. And he's all like, you're getting married now at your age and all that kind of stuff. It's like, well, I spent all these years, building up a successful business and, buying a beautiful home, filling it full of beautiful things. I need somebody to look after it and me. And so, he's all like, so who? The daughter of a business partner of mine, Eleanor, and all this stuff. And so, and the guy's like, but why would she marry you? And he's like, well, I think I'm really easy to get along with. I think I'm quite a catch. And so, so they're at home. And so he, We find out immediately, like this guy has OCD to the nth degree. I mean, I think pretty much all of us at some point or another, we all have a little bit of OCD in us. Some of us have a lot of it, but this guy, nobody can compete with this guy. I mean, he's just, he's getting on to his wife constantly about how, like, he goes to sit down in a chair. Used to he has the magazine rack right next to the chair. His wife moved it, so he gets all bent out of shape because she moved the magazine rack. She's like, okay, okay, it's okay, calm down. If it bothers you, I'll put it back. He's like, well, of course it bothers me and all this stuff. So like the next morning, he's in the shower, she's laying in bed, so he comes out, and probably the grossest, most grotesque scene in this movie is when he goes around the bed and goes to her chest of drawers. Well, you think it's going to be her chest of drawers because it's on her side of the bed, you know. And so he takes out a pair of her undies and starts to put them on. He's like, "What the hell is this?" And she's like, "They're mine." Yours is like, "Well, yeah, I figured you'd want to have your stuff on your side of the bed." And so he's all like, "No, mine have always been in this drawer, full of the buttons on top, blah, 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 blah. How can one live in chaos?" So he's like, he drags, almost drags his wife out of the bed, takes her down to the basement. He's all like, "Look, this is, I like to build things in my spare time. It relaxes me. But, I have to make sure everything is neatly filed away. I got the boards, the size, the width, the diameter, this, that, the other, all this other kind of stuff. And that's the value of neatness." And she's like, this poor woman, she's ready to bust into tears, you know. And it's abuse, it really is. I mean, you can understand, yeah, if you have like a wife or a husband or somebody, it's like, yeah, you kind of would like to have things a little orderly around the house, but I mean, this is just going too far. So she's having dinner with a friend or lunch with a friend of hers, and she's talking about like she had, we understand the reason she married him. She had no money, no education, so there really wasn't much of anything she could do. She wasn't in the spot to, be on her own, so that's why she went ahead and married this guy. And she's like, well, he's nice for the most part, but just seems like the only thing he wants me to do is keep his house tidy all the time. So, and so he's at home, and he's tuning. He's got like he's got a vinyl record player and stuff. He's got to make sure it's got to sound just right and everything else, and everything's got the tuning and the bass, everything's got to be just right and stuff. So his wife's getting ready to go into the kitchen to make dinner, and so he's, "Oh, honey, don't worry, I'll do that. I'm a pretty good cook, and let me cook dinner for you tonight." So you're kind of like, okay, maybe this guy isn't such a heel after all. So he goes in there, he starts to make dinner, and he can't find tomato sauce or spaghetti sauce or any of that kind of stuff. So, he yells at his wife to get in the kitchen. And so he's, telling her he's got this system, like, on the doors, there's like all these marks where, if something is there, you erase one of the marks. If you use a can, like if you take a can of corn, there's like three marks, you erase one of the marks if you use one of the cans. Well, apparently she didn't do this. She didn't know to do it. So I mean, this guy's flipping out and everything else and just screaming at her, yelling at her, dropping stuff and everything else. And he goes off. And the woman, she's just crying her eyes out. She feels horrible. So the next morning he comes in, she's got everything all nice and spiffy and tidy and fixed up and cleaned up and everything else. And so, he's talking about, yeah, this is great. I can make do with this. And she's like, I'll be, he's letting her know, I'll be home from work at 6 o'clock, like always. So it's like later in the day and she's just, hanging around the house and she's drinking, she's bored, listening to music and stuff like that. And she looks at the clock and she realizes like, he's going to be coming home soon. So she's starting to flip out. And you feel so bad for this woman because you realize if she just like took a moment, I mean, you understand, she realizes like how this guy can get out of control with his OCD and stuff like that. But, it's just one of those things. It's like, lady, it's not that bad. I mean, she's got like it starts off very simply. She's maybe got like a couple of magazines laid out. She got a couple of records out, that she was listening to. So she, it's like all she's got to do is just put the stuff back, put the magazines back, this, that, and the other. You're good. Then she accidentally sets like she sets the glass of the drink she had, sits on the table. So she realized it left a ring. So she's got to go get wood polish to try to get that out. She puts it beside her foot, and so her foot accidentally kicks it over and it gets on the carpet. So now she's trying to get it off the carpet. So, and so she's trying to get everything all situated. She bumps into the wall, a painting falls off the wall, there's a hole in the wall. So now she's got to try to go get so I mean, she's running downstairs. So I mean, she's literally now she's in full panic mode. She's literally tearing the basement apart. And, so she's running up this, you could tell pretty much her mind is snapped at this point. So she's running up the stairs, the guy, Eleanor. And so he goes down and he's all like, he starts screaming at her, "You messed up my whole house. Can't you do anything neatly? Can't you? Can't you?" And just over and over and over again. He says, "Can't you do anything neatly? Can't you do anything neatly? Can't you do anything neatly?" And finally she has enough and she just, bam, hits him in the head with a hammer. And it's funny. It's very dark, kind of comical though. But the guy falls over, and then it's like, okay, we have like a time cut later on, and we're kind of like we're focusing on the basement door, and you hear her voice, and she's talking about, "Oh, Arthur, you said I can be clean and neat, but I fix everything. Everything is in its place," because he keeps telling her everything in its place and a place for everything. And so he's all like, so she's like, "I put everything in its place, a place for everything. Everything is so good and great and wonderful, and all this." And then what we realize, it's like pulling the camera's like circling around her to reveal on the wall. She put the shelves back up, but now she's got jars with all of his body parts in it. So she neatly dismembered him and put him, in these jars and stuff like that on the wall. And she's, like I said, her mind is snapped, so she's laughing maniacally. But you see, like, there's like a jar that has his eyeballs, one that has his teeth, one that has his fingers, this, that, and everything. So that's the second story. Get to the third story. Now we got the married couple who, they're magicians. They're kind of like well known in the States, but they're traveling abroad because they're looking for, they're trying to find, like new things that they could do for their act and stuff. And so they come across this kind of like street magician. And so they see him doing this trick. He's putting a boy like in a wicker basket, and he's running swords through it and stuff. And so the guy goes up there and basically he ruins it for the audience and makes him, he's like, the guy's like trying to take a knife and like looks like he's like pushing it through his chin and stuff. But the guy, like, he's just being a jerk about it. So he goes up and he ruins the illusion for everybody. And so they're talking. So they go back to their and the street magician has this young beautiful woman with him, and she's of course she's mad what he did and stuff. So they're talking about like yeah, let's go ahead and get ready to go home and all this. It's like, well, a couple more days, see if we can find any new tricks or new acts for the show and stuff. So he's walking down the street one day. He sees this girl. She's playing the flute or whatever it is. She's playing it, and then this rope comes out of a basket and everything else. And so he goes up to her. He's watching her do it, and he's totally entranced by this whole thing. So he's all like, "Do you mind?" And she's like, "No, go ahead." And so he's like, he's testing everything. He's testing the basket. He's examining the rope. He's looking at everything. Make sure that everything is okay. Everything's that it's not rigged in some way. And so he's so blown over by this. He tells the girl, "I'll pay you. How much you want for how much do you want for this trick?" And she's like, "It's no trick. It's real magic." And okay, well, how much do you want for it? "It's not for sale at any price and stuff." So the guy's like, "I'll give you all this money and everything else." And she's like, "No, it's not for sale. It's family magic." So he goes back, tells his wife about the whole thing, and she's like, "He wouldn't sell it." He's like, "The thing of it is, honey, if I can't figure out how the trick is done, nobody can figure it out." So they devise this plan. They get the girl, she goes back in, or he goes back to her, and she's playing the flute and stuff. And he asks her, "Could you come and just?" He's like, "I understand you don't want to sell it, but could you at least just come and show it to my wife? I'll pay you money just to show my wife the trick." And reluctantly, she agrees. But so they go up to the room, and the wife, she's drinking booze and stuff, and then she hears a knock at the door. She jumps in bed. "Oh, come in," So they come in, and the woman's like, "I'm sorry to hear you." "Oh, thank you so much." And so he's all like, "Go ahead, show her the trick and everything else." So she sits down, she starts playing, and the rope starts coming out and everything else. And meanwhile, the husband, he's like sneaking it back. He takes his sword that they bought, and he runs her through with the sword, and pretty much kills her. And then they take her body, stuff in the closet and stuff. They're like, "We'll dispose of her later, but right now we need to figure out how this trick works." So they're checking it out and all this stuff. And so he starts playing, and the rope comes out and it goes all the way up to the ceiling. And so she decides she's going to climb on it. And so she starts doing it, and she gets up to the roof. And then all of a sudden she looks up at the ceiling, and she screams, and blood starts pouring out. That was a cool trick. Blood starts pouring out of the ceiling and stuff like that. And then the rope basically kind of turns. You start hearing a bullwhip sound effect. And the guy's like trying to get away from it, and it's like whoosh, whoosh, everywhere he goes. It's like whoosh, getting him. And he's trying to make a break for the door, doesn't get there, and he ends up, gets the rope wrapped around his neck, and he ends up being hung by the ceiling. And then we see the street magician and the girl. Turns out she's not dead for whatever, however that happened. She's still alive. But the guys, they could see up into the window of the motel room, and so they see that, the guy's dead. He's hanging by his neck. So there's that one. So, they're talking about, you look like you've seen a ghost. And he's like, ghosts are only magician's tricks. So we get to the next story, and the next story is about this guy who's a writer, and he's talking about, like, he's a horror writer, and he's talking about, I don't, there's no making any money in horror stories. Did anybody ever tell Stephen King this? That, you can't make money writing horror stories? Clive Barker, Dean Koontz, Anne Rice. Somebody needs to let those people know you can't make any money writing horror stories. Anyway, back to the story. The guy was talking about how, he's been writing, he's been a struggling writer, but he's not making money. So what he wants to do is he wants to fake his death. And he's going to inject himself with this stuff, and this stuff is going to give him, he's not going to be dead, but it's going to give the appearance that he's dead. And he wants to go ahead and this buddy of his is supposed to get the insurance money. And, once they get the insurance money, then that's it. They split the money and they can pretty much live comfortable for the rest of their lives. So they both agree, and he's all like, okay, you go ahead and get everything set in motion and I'll, and all this stuff. And then, after you get the insurance money, come back, dig me up, and, there we go. So, as soon as his partner leaves, though, he goes to his drawer, he pulls out a gun, and he's all like, as soon as I got the money, I don't need you anymore, buddy. So he's going to double cross his friend and Alex. And so, meanwhile, while this is going on, so, but the guy goes in and he injects himself, and he's there, and the funny thing is he starts reading a paperback, which is the novelization of Tales from the Crypt. It's funny. So anyway, meanwhile, while that's going on, we got these two medical students. They're in the next department, and they're talking about like, oh my God, I'm never going to pass the anatomy quiz. And, the problem is we can only go in there, work in the area, in the laboratories when we're assigned, so what we need a corpse that we can work on so we can study it, so we can pass the anatomy quiz and things like that. So the next morning, the mail lady, she picks up the mail. She goes up to the room, and she goes in. She's knocking, but the guy doesn't answer. She goes in. She sees him laying there, looking like he's dead. So she screams, and the two medical students run in there, and they see him. And they're all like, "Whoa, hey!" I'm like, "Hey." The funny thing is like it seems like, of course, it's just a story. I get it, but it kind of seems like everything seems to happen all in the course of a single day. That he's dead. They take him. Obviously, that's kind of the thing. I get it. It's a story and stuff, but at the same time, it's like, well, that would be the thing. They would have to check when they may do an autopsy on him. Things like that. But it seems like the guy is dead and buried in one day, and the guy also manages to already get all the insurance money and everything all in one day. But, like I said, I get it. It's a comic book. So excuse me. So anyway, so that night he finally wakes up and he's realized he's not going to have long to go. He's running out of oxygen. Well, we find out that his buddy is actually going to double cross him. He got the insurance money, and so he's packing a suitcase. He's ready to take off, and he's all like, I wonder how he's going to feel when he realizes his friend, Alex, isn't coming to save him. Well, meanwhile, the two medical students, they go, and turns out they pay off the guy running the graveyard to dig up the body so that they could take the body and use it for anatomy class. So they're in there, they're trying to dig up some funny moments, because like the guy's like, he's not paying attention to what he's doing. He's like shoveling dirt in one guy's face. The guy's like, throw it over there. So he moves to another. Okay, so he moves in that area. Guy throws a shovel full of dirt, gets it in the head again. So sorry, and he's like, hurry, I'm running out of air. Hurry, hurry. So he finally opens up the coffin. The guy jumps up, Alex, and scares the hell out of the two medical students. And they go running out. They run out through the cemetery gates into the road. Just at that time, the car with Alex swerves, hits a tree, explodes on impact. So the guy, Alex, he's dead. And then the graveyard, caretaker, he comes back, hey, come here, guys. And so he goes back, it's like, sorry about the head, but, you could give me the money now. And, look, and turns out the graveyard caretaker, he took the shovel and, like, cleaved the guy's head in two. So, and then, They're all like, that's preposterous, It's like, yeah, but it seems so real and stuff. So we finally get to our last story. We have an artist who, he's kind of like on an island and he's, in a hut and he's just hanging out, painting, stuff like that, just, kicking back. And he gets visited by a friend of his. This friend of his tells him that, hey, these paintings of yours, they're selling like hotcakes. It's like, what? And, wait a minute. They told me my paintings weren't selling and all that stuff. It's, well, no, they're selling, dude. And, people are paying good money for them and all this stuff. So he goes and he meets these three guys. One of them is an art critic. One of them is our dealer. One of them is like a agent, manager or something. And turns out one of the guys is actually Denholm Elliott from, Indiana Jones movies and things. And so, they're talking about, that was the thing, it's like, hey, we were able, you said my paintings couldn't be sold. And it's like, hey, we were able to screw you over. You're just going to have to deal with it and stuff. It's like, I'll get my revenge on you and stuff like that. And, he goes to this witch doctor in, on the island and stuff. And, they tell him, and he's like, I want to learn, witchcraft to get revenge. And so, there's like this pot boiling and stuff. He's like, put your hand in there, so you kidding? He's like, no. He's like, you want magic? Do it. So he puts his hand in there, the hand that you paint with. And so, he's all like, okay, now what do I do now? Like get a doll, stick pins in it or something. He's like, no, you're a painter. Paint. And so he paints him, he pays him the money, goes off. So the guy's like, he's just kicking back. And so he sees like, he's like, he like draws a, he sees a vase, some stuff in it. So he draws it. And not very good. So he tears up and he sees the vase falls down and breaks on the floor. So I was like, hey, wait a minute. I'm kind of curious about something. So he goes, cuts a slice of bread, throws it on the floor, and he sits there. He draws the slice of bread, takes the eraser, erases off an edge of it. Then at that moment, a mouse comes in and nibbles off the exact edge. So he's like, wait a minute. I can sit here. I can, I can paint things or draw things. I can turn around. I can, I could make something happen. I could get my revenge on these guys. So he does paintings of all three of these guys. And there's like the one guy he does a painting of. He's all like, you said that, you looked at my paintings and said they couldn't be sold. So I'm going to fix it so you never see anything again. So he takes this thing, he gouges out the eyes in the painting. Quick cut two. The guy is having an argument with his wife, and she's all like, how long have you been seeing this woman and all that stuff? And so, this is the 20th century, men are going to fool around, you got to get used to it. So she grabs a bottle of acid. You're never going to see this woman ever again. So she throws the acid in his face, and so he's blinded pretty much. And then he goes to the next painting, and then he tells the guy, you said my paintings couldn't be handled, so I'm going to make sure you never handle anything again. So he takes a knife and he cuts, where he painted the guy's hands, he cuts, along the wrists. Quick cut two, the guy's in the, he's in this office, and this guy's having trouble, it's like one of those big, like, paper cutters, where you, like, it's got the big wood, the big wood slab, you feed the paper through it, and you got the, whoosh, like that, to cut the paper off. And so, he's like, you're an idiot. I don't know why we hire you and all this other kind of stuff. Pay attention. So, he's like showing him out. So he puts his hand, and the blade falls down and chops his hands off. So, so there's that. And then we get to Denholm Elliott's character, and he's all like, I'll deal with you tomorrow. So it's the next day. Denholm Elliott, his character, is sitting there. He's reading about what happened in the papers. So the guy comes in, he pulls out a gun. He's like, stop right there. He's like, wait, I just thought you'd like to see this painting. It's like, here, it's just a red pen. So he draws a little red circle on the guy's forehead. And so Denholm Elliott, he's trying to, like, but the gun's like turn around and he shoots himself, falls down dead. And so the guy, but the thing is, though, is I forgot to mention, when the guy first gets back to London, the first thing he does is he rents his old apartment, gets a giant safe. He has a self-portrait of himself that he puts into the safe, and it's been saying now he's starting to realize he's running out of oxygen because he kept that painting in the safe. So he needs to get back, hurry up, get back to he needs to hurry up, get back, get that painting out of the safe so that he won't suffocate to death. But the guy makes a mistake. Sorry, throat strike. So he makes a mistake. He leaves his watch, runs over there, is able finally, just in the nick of time, get the painting out. So, but then he's like, okay, everything is okay. He's fine. So starts to get up. Then he realizes, oh my God, I left my damn watch over there at the guy's office. So he's running back to get it. Meanwhile, there's like a glass ceiling above his apartment, and these guys are on scaffolds and they're painting and stuff like that. and the guy's got he's got like a jar of paint thinner and stuff. So he accidentally knocks it over. It falls, goes through the glass ceiling. The paint thinner gets all over the guy's self portrait. So as he's running across the street, he gets mowed down by a semi truck. So there's that. 30 minutes. It took me to tell you all this, but anyway, though, then we get the little shock, the little twist at the end, and then the elevator doors finally open. It opens up on a giant cemetery, and they realize that's where they got to be. That's where they're going to go. So the five of them kind of go off, or four of them start to go off in different directions, and they start to disappear. And as a matter of fact, it's the guy from the story about the magician. He's talking about, see, this is what we do every night for all of eternity. So I don't know if he was meant to be like the vault keeper or what, but this is what we do every night for all of eternity. We talk about why we're here, and we talk about the evil things we've done in our lives that brought us here. And so he goes, and he disappears too, and that's where the movie ends. And still, I mean, it's I don't know, it's like they're both great. I like both of them. I don't know if I prefer like Tales from because they're both pretty much the same thing. They come from the same writers and creators and things like that. So I don't know if I actually prefer one better than the other. Maybe Tales from the Crypt a little bit more over Vault of Horror, but Vault of Horror is still fantastic. It's great, man. If you love Tales from the Crypt, you're gonna love Vault of Horror. I definitely recommend checking it out. Oh, it's fantastic. I love it. So anyway, yeah, I think I pretty much said fantastic. Check it out. I know if the thing is though, I would strongly recommend if you can get the Scream Factory Blu-ray, get this instead because these are pretty much uncut as far as I know. I have the the Midnight Movie DVD version of these, and that Vault of Horror is cut. I don't know if Tales from the Crypt is or not, but I know Vault of Horror is cut on the DVD, so this one's pretty much the way to go. But yeah, this is anyway though. That's it pretty much. I love both of them. They're great. I love Tales from the Crypt. You know that. So anyway, if anybody took the time to watch all of this, I thank you for doing it. And I appreciate you for doing it. I honestly hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Be weekly videos posted. Until then, this is the Night Walker. Thank you again for watching, and be careful if you're out strolling about at night. You just might run into me.